Today's daf is Mem Vav. We'll begin now on daf Mem Hey Amud Beis with V'Sava Rabbi Yehuda. Let's see if we can find it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 lines up before the end of Mem Hey Amud Beis. V'Sava Rabbi Yehuda Lilkos Loke Mikol Makom. The Gemara now is going to posit a stira l'chora between two statements of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, as recorded here, holds that although in order for the Motzi Shemra to be chayiv mer sela, he's got to be boel, but nevertheless, as far as Malchus is concerned, he gets Malchus for violating the law of lo tzelech Rachel be'amecha. And even though that's a lav chain bo maisa, but Rabbi Yehuda holds that lokin a lav shel ein bo maisa. And now we have a stira. B'Tanya we have a brayso that records Rabbi Yehuda Omer baal loke lo baal eino loke. That the Motzi Shemra only will incur a chiv malchus, at least malchus doraisa, if he actually was boel her. And later on, we're going to see how the entire parsha, al pi pshuto, of Motzi Shemra is talking about a case of boel. Lo matzasi lebitcha pesulin, etc. All the psukim are indicative of the fact that he was boel. And in the punishment for Motzi Shemra, an event that they were edim hamazimim, to be mazim his edim, then there's a twofold punishment. There's malchus, and there is mea kesef. And now the question is, are these two independent or it's one package deal? In the case of lo baal, Rabbi Yehuda insists that he doesn't pay mea kesef, but yet he will get malchus. So we're separating malchus from the mea kesef, from the monetary fine. And malchus becomes a separate machayev, a separate entity based on lo selech rachel. But now we have a brayso that says that according to Rabbi Yehuda, in the case of lo baal, not only do we suspend the monetary penalty of mea sela, but also we suspend malchus. Now, how do we reconcile these two transmissions of Rabbi Yehuda? And we have a few answers. The first answer is Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Look at when it says in the previously quoted brayso that according to Rabbi Yehuda, there will be malchus even in the absence of be'ilah. That's only malchus mardus. Midrabanan. As far as the Torah law is concerned, we have the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda that would be based on Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov was quoted a little bit earlier on our Amud as saying that the Torah says that you're only chayiv malchus for Motzi Shemra in event that you are baal. And in the brayso that we saw that you do get malchus, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that's only malchus d'Rabbanan. But Papa Amar, here's another way of reconciling this apparent contradiction. My baal loked kani atzam. It's very interesting that the word loke now takes on a brand new meaning. I'm going to try to prove this even in biblical Hebrew, that the word loke doesn't necessarily mean makas, but rather mammon, hasam mammon. The price when it says that even in the absence of be'ilah, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the Motzi Shemra is chayiv malchus, it doesn't mean loke malchus, it means loke mammon. So now we're holding that it means the following. Baal is a t'nai in loke, and the word loke means the mea kesef. So that Rabbi Yehuda holds that in the absence of be'ilah, there's no mea kesef, but there would be malchus. So the Gemara asks, what do you mean? It says loken. The Karile Lamam and Malchus, do we find any source in which the word loke means mammon? The Karile Lamam and Malchus, we do find such a source. But Tanya, we find it in a brisa. Now, Rabbos, I have to admit that this brisa is a little bit beyond our, shall we say, expertise to be. We're going now into the laws of Erchin. And within the context of a Daf Yomi shir, we're going to just touch, like skirt the surface of the laws of Erchin. A man says, Erech Ploni Alai. I accept upon myself with a neder of Erchin to give to Hegdesh the value of so-and-so. And that goes to Hegdesh Bedek HaBayis, which is called Kedushas Dom. And then the Torah tells you exactly, there's like a chart based on gender, based on age, how much money you have to give when you take a pledge of Erech Yolai, or in this case, Erech Shalplonial. The Brisa addresses a case, a weird case, a Omer Chatzi Erech Yolai. He wants to pay and commit himself to half of their 50%. And he's mitchayev to give to Bedek HaBayis half of that which is specified in the Torah as the Erech. So let's say the Erech for so-and-so at his age, and he's a male, is 100. He took upon himself to pay 50 for Bedek HaBayis. Tanakama says, no saying Chatzi Erko. He actually pays half. That was his neder. We're not going to expect him to go beyond his neder. However, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Loke, v'nosein erech sholem. Now again, you and I would say the word Loke means we give 39 shmaitzen. No. Loke means he's going to pay money. And in a certain sense, don't take me literally on this, he's fined another 50%. He's going to have to give 100% of the erech. But that's going to be Xera D'Rabbanan. It's not a penalty per se. So first the Gemara says, wait a minute, can you take this literally? Loka, Amai, what malchus should he get? A man took upon himself an erech Yolai, Erechin, Adarabba, give him shlishi. What are you giving him malchus for? Omar Av Papa, the erech sholem. The word loka means that he has to pay more than what he obligated and committed himself to pay. My time. Why does Rabbi Yossi insist that he should pay the full erech when he only took upon himself chatzi? And here's where we get into the really, how should I say, the very sensitive nuances of the laws of erech about how you take this ned. There are two ways you can take the ned, and to us they sound identical, but to the sugya they're fundamentally different, and we're going to institute Xera because people might confuse the two. What are the two possibilities? There's Chati Erko and there's Erech Chetzio. Do you hear the difference between those two? I don't. But in any event, it works like this. A man could say the following: Chatzi Erki Olai. Or he could say Erech Chetzi Olai. So the question is, which word came first in his pronouncement? The word Erech or the word Chatzi? In both cases, he says Olai. He's accepting upon himself that Erech. The Erech Chetio, Havile Ever Shaneshama Tluya Bo. If he had pronounced not Chatzi Erech Yolai, but rather Erech Chetzi Olai, then he's pledging the erech of half of himself, and whichever way you cut the body up, from top to the middle or from the middle to the top, it always entails an aver chaneshama tluyava, some part of the body that's vital for his biological sustenance. So therefore, we have a gzera of the case which he actually said chatzi erki, which is fine. Chatzi erki mean half of, let's say I'm worth 100, just throwing out a number. But we're afraid of the confusion with the case where he says erech chetzi. I pledge the value of half my body. Now, if he pledges the value of half his body, like for example, the Gemara has the case of erech roshi or erech libi, right? The head or the lev, these are clearly vital organs. So he pays erech sholem. And that has to do with a sugya called his pashtus hakedusha. Like for example, in Kedushas Mizbeach, if a man says to this about this animal, I'm Magdish, the head of the animal, the entire animal becomes Hegdish. Why? Because the head is an neshama, is an Aver Shad Neshama Tzluya. So here too, according to Rabbi Yotzi, we're going to charge him the full price, even though he committed himself only to half price, because of the Gzera, instead of saying Chatzi Erki, which would have been fine, and that's exactly what he said, he might say Erech Chetzi. Okay, fine. Rabbanon, the Anshu also Zemamon. Interesting. Here we have a case in a biblical Hebrew, because in the parsha in Dvarim Chav Beis of Motzi Shemra, it says the Anshu also. And the word onesh, like we saw before the word malchus, would sound like a corporeal punishment, but that's not what the Torah is referring to. The anshu also me'akes. And that's mum. But then, at the end of that pasuk, I'm sorry, at the beginning of that pasuk, it says v'yisru osa. And the Brisa says v'yisru osa zeb malchus. So v'yanshu also means mamon, the mea kesef, and v'yisru also means we give him malchus. So Gemara says bishlei v'yanshu zeb mamon, but v'yanshu also mea kesef. That's explicit. V'nasan levianara. El v'yisru zeb malchus, that a motzi shemer is chayav malchus, which by the way means that you get malchus for a lav shem bo ma'aseh. It's only dibur minolan. How do you know such a thing? And the Gemara is now going to introduce a complex Gzeira Shava, where A is compared to B, and B is compared to C, and therefore A is compared to C, the transitive law. Amar Rabbi Avo, Lamanu Yisru mi Yisru. Yisru in the parsha of Motzi Shemra, from Yisru in the parsha of Ben Sorer Umorer. The Yisru and the Yisru in Ben Sorer Morer, where it says, what does it say in the pasuk? Ki ish ben Sorer Morer, and then it says the Yisru, but it says ben u ben mi ben, which actually bin with a pirik under the base in the parsha of Malchus, where it says v'haya im bin hakos harasha at the end of Parshas Kiseitz. So we now have an equation between the Yisru and bin through the middle stage of the Yisru in Ben Sorer Morer. So the Yisru in Motzi Shema, the Yisru in Ben Sorer Morer, and then we have ben equal to bin, because they're both as two letters of Beis Nun, and that teaches me that you get Malchus. As her lemotzi shemra minola. if you're getting Malchus from Motzi Shema, there must be an Azhara because we have a principle of Ein Onchim Ellen Gain Mazirin. There's got to be an Azhara, a Lotas in the Torah. Aligmar is going to have Machlokes. What is the Lotas which the Motzi Shema violates? Rabbi Losa Omar Lo Selech Rachel, as we mentioned earlier. Rabbi Nosson Omer V'nishmarta Mikol Dovara. Now the Gemara wants to know why each man the Omar rejects the other. Rabbi Losa my time Lo Omar may hide from the pasuk V'nishmarta Mikol Dovara. And the word Dovara, the phrase Dovara, sounds like Motzi Shema. No. Humi Boyle, he needs it. L'chir Rabbi Pinchas ben Yoyer. The drasha Rabbi Pinchas v'nishmarta mikol davara mikana Rabbi Pinchas ben Yoyer al yahar odom bayom v'yavel lidei tuma malal. If a person has the wrong hirhurim, he's thinking about something immoral, it's going to affect his pollution at night. Tuma balai. Now the flip side, Rabbi Nosson my time alo Omar may high. Why couldn't he derive it from Lo Selech Rachel? And the Gemara answers, this pasuk, according to Rabbi Nosson, of Lo Selech Rachel, is addressing the Dayanim. The Dayanim are enjoined from showing any sort of favorability, any sort of favoritism, where they speak very harshly to one of the Bali Dinim and very softly to the other. They have to be fair for all Bali Dinim. Okay. Now we get into a very interesting sugya about Motzi Shema. And by way of introduction, I would ask the following question. Yesh lachko. What is the machayev of Motzi Shema? Is it the fact that he commissioned two false witnesses? Or is it his claim, which was substantiated by two witnesses who turned out to be Adam Zon? Lo amar li'edim bo v'ha'iduni. He did not commission the Adam and say those magic words, come and testify on my behalf to prove that she had znus. V'hein me'idin osomei aleim. On their own initiative, the Adam came to testify against this woman. So here we have a machlokas. The Tanakama says, the machlokas is going to be in the diuk. Everybody agrees that in this case, hu ain't loka, because he did not commission the Adam. And v'yein notzim me'asah, so there's no parsha of Motzi Shema. Now, the last part of this brisa is a shibush. The Gemara is going to immediately correct it, but we'll read it in its mistaken form. He v'zomemea makdimim lebeis haskila. Makes no sense. He v'zomemea masal kedaita mimanavsham. If the Eidim are telling the truth, the first pair of Eidim, then we bring her to beis haskila. On the other hand, there's hazom against the Eidim, then the Eidim, right? Then we put the Eidim to death and she's off the hook. But how can it be that both the Eidim and her are going to skila? But rather, Ella ohi ozomemeha, makdim lebeis haskila. In the case where there was no hazama, then she goes to the beis haskila. In the case where there is hazama, then the Eidim go to the beis haskila and she's off the hook. So now we get to the deal. In the Brisa, it says that he's exempt from Motzi Shema, both Malchus and Mea Kesef, because he did not tell the Eidim to come to Bezdin. Taima de lo Omar lehu. The reason why he's off the hook is because he didn't say to the Eidim, come and testify. Ha Omar lehu. If he had told the Eidim, come, invoking your help, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm subpoenaing you, if you could say. Your subpoena actually comes from the court, but he says, I'm subpoenaing you to come and testify and support my claim. And he's chayav as a motzi shemer. That's going to be a major machlokas. Why? Because the issue at stake is what's the machayev of motzi shemer? Is the fact that he subpoenaed these Eidim, he invited these Eidim, he called upon these Eidim, that's one approach, or no, he is paying the Eidim. Even though he didn't pay the Eidim, it's not enough that he tells the Eidim, testify on my behalf. He's got to pay off the Eidim. And we'll see exactly how he pays them. Like time of Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Avo, Asya Sima Sima. We have Xer Shava from the Parsha of Rivas to the Parsha of Motzi Shemer. Ksiv Hach in Motzi Shemer, it says, V'sam la alilas dvarim. As I state in Pasuk, V'sam. Ksiv Hasav of the Parsha of Rivas, it says, Lo tisimun olav neshech. Now, in the case of neshech, the violation is about payment of money. Pay me ribis, pay me usury, pay me an extra amount of money. It's malal, just like in the case of ribis lemamon. Right, the Malva says to the lover, look, better, I'm not going to lend you this money unless you pay me an extra fee. Is Afkan here to Motzi Shema Mama? This is Rabbi Yehuda Shita that he says to the Eidim, I'm going to pay you kach v'kach in order for you to perjure yourself in business. Oh, Rav Nachbar Yitzchak V'chein Toni Rabbi Yossi Tzitoni Bei Rabbi Yishu Rabbi Shema Yochai As Yosim Osim. Okay, now we're going to assume against the first brisa, like the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda in the second brisa, that the Motzi Shema has to pay the Eidim in order to be chayiv as Motzi Shema. Now, this is derived from the Gzeir Shava to usury, to what's it called, ribis. Now, there's halach in ribis that you're only chayiv ribis if you, let's say, the Malva demands monetary payment. What do I mean by monetary payment? The laws of Mammon divide into two categories, two branches. There's metaltalin and there's karka. So if the Malva says to the lover, in addition to the 100 that you have to repay me, that I'm extending you the loan, give me a diamond ring, that's called ribis. If he says to him that I want your field as ribis, he's not chai. And now when we get to the Gzeret Shava of Sima and Yesimun, the question is how far do we go with that Gzeret Shava? Boy Rabbi Yirmiyah, Scharan bekarka maut. In the case of ribis, there's no chiyuv ribis in karka, only a metaltal. And now we should say by virtue of the Gzeret Shava, going to one side in Rabbi Yirmiyah's Safek, that in Motzi Shemra, when he has to pay off the Eidim, it's not a payment in karka, he's got to pay him in metaltal. Metaltal includes obviously currency. That's suffix number one of Rabbi Yirmiyah. Now we get to suffix number two of Rabbi Yirmiyah. V'pachos mishava pruta ma. After all, in ribis, you're only chayav the oraisa for violating the law of ribis if you are taking an interest at the minimum of one prut. Less than one prut is not considered mum. Do we apply that same yardstick in the context of the Gzeret Shava to the case of Motzi Shem? Now we have a third suffix of Rabbi Yirmiyah. Shneim bepruta mal. If you're going to tell me that there's a minimum amount of money that he has to pay in order to be chayiv as Motzi Shema, pay off the Eidim. What if he's willing to pay one pruta's worth to two Eidim? Each Eid will get a half a pruta. Do we see them as one entity? And therefore, in fact, he hired him at the price of a pruta? Oh, no, he's hiring each Eid separate. And each Eid got only a chatzi pruta. Now, there's one word that's missing in the Gemara, which I can't figure out why, and that's teku. Maybe you have a footnote on that. There should be the word teku here because the Gemara comes to no conclusion. And Rabbi Yirmiyah, all over Shas, always asks these questions, and the Gemara ends up with teku. Now, another question I just want to throw out here, if you have any insight on this, it says, "Hu vehem makdimim lebeis haskila." I never understood that word makdimim, like with sunrise. Immediately on sunrise, you got to take him out to the beis haskila because of Inyan Din. I don't know. I don't know what the word makdimim means. Okay, fine. Hoy Rav Ashi, hotzi shemar ala nisuin arishonim. What happens, asks Rav Ashi, if the man marries his divorced wife, and he's not a Kohen, so that's a nice gesture on his part. He remarries his divorced wife. And now he starts up by saying, when I married her the first time, and I expected to get a basula, I got a ba'ul. And I'm going to bring Eidim now to testify that during the erusin of our first round of marriage, she had a meises nus. That's suffix number one. Suffix number two, al nisue achim. Reuven and Shimon are two brothers. Reuven's married to Rachel. Reuven dies. Rachel falls for Yibum to Reuven's brother Shimon. And Shimon says, hey, this woman Rachel, when she was an arusa of my late brother Reuven, she had an extramarital relationship. And the Gemara says, Pshot mi achad. I can't answer both of your questions, Rav Ashi, but one I can answer. The Tani Rabbi Yonah, as piti nasati li'ish hazeh, the parasha of Motzi Shema. Lazeh, the Torah added the word lazeh, v'lo liyavam. So when the Yavam, that's Shimon, is Motzi Shemra on the Yavama, based on the erusin to his late brother Reuven, he's not Chayav Midin Motzi Shemra. But the other issue that you asked, that a man who remarries his divorced wife and now he wants to be Motzi Shemra based on the erusin in the first round, that the Gemara says I have no answer. Now, back on Daf Mem Hayim and Beis in the Gemara a little bit earlier than where we started, the Gemara brought to Machlot Shem Rabbi Elazar and Yaakov and Chachamim as to whether Motzi Shemra is chayav even without Be'il. My Rabbanan and my Rabbi Elazar and Yaakov, Tisan. The repeat of that Machlokes. Ketzad Otzal Shemra. Baal Bezdin, the Omar Ploni, he says to his father-in-law Ploni, and apparently she had his nus relationship before we got married, before we consummated our marriage, during the Erusin. In the Yesh Eidim Shezinsa Tachtov, but here we're going to again have a shibush, a mistake in the Brisa. There are Eidim that she had nus. Is Yesh Lo Ksubas Mon. That doesn't make any sense. And the Gemara is going to throw this out because she gets skila. In fact, the Gemara in the Yesh Eidim Shezin Satach Yesh Lo Ksubas Mon about skila he hachi kama. In Yesh Eidim Shezin Satach the skila. That means tachtov after erusin. Zinsa veikara before erusin yesh lo ksubis mana. And this is machlokas back in the first parak of Ksubis, when a man marries a woman cheskes psula and he finds her to be a ba'ula, and in this case there are even Eidim that testify that she was a ba'ula. Is the whole deal off? That's called mekach or no? she gets a ksuba of a ba'ula, because she was a ba'ula at the time of the Eretz, and she gets mon. Our Gemara reflects that opinion that she gets mon. Brisa continues. Nimsa sheshemra, eno shemra. That shemra that he said about her, the terrible slander, is not true. And Adam came to be mazim. He's his two Adam. Ulokam and osim. Says the Chachamim, Bein Baal, Bein Lo Baal. The parsha of Eidim Zomimim applies even if Lo Baal. It's against the Pshuto Shel Mikra. The Gemara is going to go through all the psukim to try to see how the Rabbanan are going to interpret these psukim. But Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer Lo Never Dvar Malolu Elakish Sheba. So according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, the entire parsha of Motzi Shema is conditional on the fact that he was Boel. Kipshuto Shel Mikra. Vishlemi Rabbi Eliezer Hainu Tuksivu Ba Oleha. It says Ki Yikach Ish Isha Uba Oleha. And then also it says when the Torah records the claim of the Baal, he says it's Isha Zos Lakachti Va Ekrav. And Va'ekrav sounds like they had an intimate relationship. El Rabbanan, my ubala v'ekrav. How does he interpret? How do the Rabbanan interpret this? And where it says ubala balilus, he comes though with a libel, with a claim that she had be'il. And he has Eidim to support him. That's what he claims. And I spoke to her and I asked her if she had znus, and she denied the claim, and now I bring the Eidim. It must have been Be'ila, otherwise, why is he saying I didn't find her to be a Besula? I couldn't find any Eidim who would be makrish my Eidim and prove that my Eidim were false Eidim by saying, you could have been in New York, you're with us in Chicago at that time. He's showing, the father is showing that this is the sheets that they had relations on, and here's the what do you call the stains of blood. El Rabbanon, according to the Rabbanon, my V'ela B'sula Biti, he didn't even have beer with her. And the answer again is Elek Kashrei B'sula Biti. The father of this Nara says to Bezdin, I'm going to bring Eidim to be Mazim, the Eidi Abba. Vishem Rabbi Loza, Hainu Tsiv, Uparsu Asimla. They spread out the sheet. There's no dam on the sheet. El Rabbanim Mayu Parsu B'Simla. He didn't even have a relationship with them. Oh, Rabbi Avo, Parsu Mashasam La. Parsu means he made it clear that his libel claim against her is true, meaning he supported his claim with Eidim. Isanyu Parsu Asimla Malami Cheboim Eidim Shalzeh V'Eidim Shalzeh Uborim Es Hadavar. Isimla Chadosha. Whenever the Torah wants to use a metaphor for clarity, it's like a brand new tablecloth, a brand new sheet. It's white, clean, machvarta. And that's what happens when we have two pairs of Eidim, the Eidim Zomim, or accused of being an Eidim Amasimim, and Bezdin goes through an entire Bira process, investigating until they determine which of the Eidim are telling the truth and which are perjuring themselves in Bezdin. Similar mamich. Similar doesn't mean the clarity of a white tablecloth. Similar means that he brings in the sheets. Shalach Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yaakov Bar Gior B'Shmei to Rabbi Yochanan Afal Gav to Lo Matzina B'Kol HaTorah Kula Chachilak HaKos B'Biyah Kedarka L'Biyah Shelo Kedarka, for all onshim, whether it be Malchus or onshim of Misa, etc. You're always going to be chayav even for B'Ila Shelo Kedarka. Avol Motzi Shema, says Rabbi Yitzchak, this is the exception to the rule. Eino chayav ad sheyivol Lo kedarka v'yotzi shemra kedarka. When he says lo matzasi lebitcha besulin, it means because I had a be'ilu with a kedarka and I didn't find besulin. So the only time he'll be chayav for motzi shema is if he had a be'ilu kedarka, and this can only reflect or be built upon the shoulders of Rabbi Eliezer and Yaakov. Keman, Ikrabanan, Afagav de Loba. The Rabbanan say you don't need be'ilu at all. So what are you telling me? That you're excluding a be'ilu shalom kedarka? You didn't have any be'ilu. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. And here we turn to Daf Mem Vav of the base. I'll just